The music that forms the Books of Magra is in three parts. The first is albums, the second is what's called sonic architecture, and the third is what's called theoretical sonic architecture. The first, the albums, is for every book of the narrative series, which is the six, there is an album of music that is its compendium. Each one of these albums is based on particular tunings of the electric guitar, and each of the albums utilizes different palettes of instrumentation and different forms of compositional approaches with different intentions. Now, when I've told people that each book has an album of music, I'm often asked this question: does that mean that you listen to the album as you read the book? The simple answer to this is sure, you can, but that's not what it's about. The albums and their relationship to the books is a much more dynamic relationship. And the best way that I can explain it is to put it this way, is that for everything that happens to me while I'm writing words or conceiving of ideas or concepts that are a part of the Books of Magra, there is always sound and music happening for me. And so the writing will actually invoke music. Whereas at the same time, creating music relates back to the writing and invokes writing. So first and foremost, I could say that the albums are reflective of aspects of the process of writing the books. However, there's more to it than that, because in the books themselves, the way they're written, there's a lot of symbolism and imagery and plot-driven moments and concepts that involve sound in terms of literal sounds or music, or even sound as a symbolic presence, sometimes even acting as like a character. So that means that sound and music are language as equal to the writing itself. Now, I've heard some people talk about music as being abstract, right? Even now, I can't really talk about music. When you experience music, everything we say with words about music is kind of halos the actual experience or manifestation of the sounds. So what is happening with these albums and the other music that I'm going to talk about is that music is evoking that which the words cannot evoke. Just as the words cannot evoke the sounds, there are things that the sounds can evoke that words cannot. So again, if someone asks me, do I listen to the music while I'm reading the book? You could. But there's a much more multidimensional, multifunctional aspect to the presence of that music. And I'm much more conscious of allowing, just like the reading itself, allowing that music to have whatever effect and meaning for the listener it may. Because I think this is, in the simplest terms, a part of what its purpose is. It's beyond me to say that this is exactly what it's for. So it's definitely for the listener to discover for themselves. So the albums, they're one of the major components of the music factor of the Books of Magra. The second is called sonic architecture. And sonic architecture is music that is written for, in the simplest terms, live experience. And there are three areas of this music. One area is music that's written for pipe organ. The second is music that's written for instruments that could be played anywhere. And the third is for music that has a very deliberate and functional relationship with space and architecture. So what this means is that sonic architecture is um, a greater elaboration, or not a greater elaboration, but it is an extension of what I just outlined in with the albums. That this music and the architecture are expressing more of the concepts and the feeling and the spirit and the being of what the Books of Magra is evoking. So if a piece of music is performed, and let's say someone has read the books, if they came up to me and said, "Is this piece of music specifically about this moment in the book?" I would say it could be. Do you think so? So it's very much in the same spirit as the albums. And sonic architecture uses a variety of instruments and compositional approaches and creative and compositional intentions. Some of the music, at least when I've been writing it, feels that it evokes more sensibilities around sound healing, where others feel like they have, for me anyways, a drive of deeper altered states of consciousness, and others seem to be a lot more rational and even depicting um, mathematical relationships in a very in the head kind of way. So these qualities of the music are achieved through a number of different forms of instrumentation and orchestration. Like I said, there's specifically music that's for pipe organ, and it also there's also pieces with other instruments, but there's also music for stringed instruments, woodwind instruments, choral music, guitar, bass, drums. So there's a variety there. And finally, the third area of music for the Books of Magra is called theoretical sonic architecture. And to explain this, I have to speak about an architect named Lebbeus Woods. When I was in university and I was studying music composition, a good friend of mine discovered a book in a used bookstore, and he showed it to me, and it was called The New City. And it was by an architect named Lebbeus Woods, who I would find out after experiencing this book was known as to be more of a theoretical architect than your pragmatic, utilitarian type of architect who makes homes and buildings for businesses and that sort. His work was more about ideas. And this book, The New City, which I was very generously gifted from my friend who found it, has been a treasured book ever since I've had it. And it's full of Lebbeus Woods drawings with some very fascinating concepts of physics, of living, and of relationships of humanity with nature and structure, architecture. This book had a huge impact on me because what it did is it didn't so much illustrate what to do, but it like a number of books I've had in my experience, it made me aware of something in myself that I needed to explore, and that need is space. And I don't, it could be outer space, but just the idea of space and our relationship with space and the complexity of that and the intricacy of that, which of course is in the greater scheme of things, I think, about nature. And so in the Books of Magra, theoretical sonic architecture is where concepts of sound and architecture are taken to a theoretical place, where it's not about whether these things can be made. It's not about whether these things can be fully realized. So in a sense, they can be experienced largely by written and visual representations, And by using sound as an analogy for other types of sound, it's a very philosophical, I would even call it to a certain degree, transcendental approach to idea and imagining. And so, again, like the albums and sonic architecture, theoretical sonic architecture is meant to be a part of the rest of the Books of Magra. And again, it's for the listener, those who experience it, to see how it relates to them and how it relates to the rest of the series. So in a nutshell, if that was a nutshell, those are the basically those are the three areas of the music component of the Books of Magra. And just like writing the books, exactly like writing the books, I work on them simultaneously. I come into this space and what needs to be done reveals itself to me on the day, and I engage with it, explore it, and evolve with it.